Welcome back, everybody, to this episode of Dale's Rails for part 2 and the conclusion of Working on the Railroad. This episode will be covering the reinstallation of the track work removed during the demolition process in part 1 and a run session of all levels. Everything went extremely well and the completion came out way ahead of schedule. So I was able to prepare for you a special run session that I hope you will enjoy. So please stay tuned until the end. Well, before I put this together, there was something about these turnouts I thought I would share with you guys. I think it's worth sharing. Marx was always kind of good at coming up with simple solutions to complex problems, it seems like. And, it's something that's you can't help but admire. But if you look at this turnout in here, like I said, there's no connection to track power, but it does have some internal wiring. We got this copper plate in here. When you plug your track in, it's going to power this up. So this is track power here. And what it's doing is you've got a wire here that's feeding your light on this one because it's got a lighted turnout here on this. And then we have a jumper wire here that's actually jumpering to this center rail here past the frog area. And then it's got a jumper that feeds this portion of the track past the frog area. So it's kind of a neat idea that they did this. You kind of question, well, why would they need to do that? Because when you plug your track here, that power goes all the way around to your switch both ways in every direction. Why would you need to power those? That doesn't make any sense, it seems like. But it's kind of a neat idea because it ensures that you always have power on each side of this gap here of your frog. And this is a little bit different design. Really, this is a frogless design. But what I like about it is there's no guardrails, and it offers very smooth running, whether you're going through the straight or the diverging route here. It's one reason why I can back through my turnouts so easily. I know that's something you're supposed to avoid, but the way my dog bone was done here with my yard in it really gave me a runaround track too on top of it. So it's just something that worked out that way, putting my yard where I did. So you can do a runaround to the main line and actually pull cars from different directions doing it that way. So it's kind of a neat feature that I'm able to do it, and I've backed some really long trains. That turnout that I showed you had the bad rivets. Even though that was like that, I did have an occasional derailing problem there with certain engines. It wasn't every engine, just certain engines. And probably because I'm trying to run an engine through there that's not designed for 027 curves. And if you notice, wherever I've got my curves, wherever I got these, I either have a straight section coming off or it's a larger radius 031 turn. So really it's kind of cutting this down, or actually increasing this. Really, it would be increasing it to a larger degree. I'm not sure what it would be, maybe 029. So it's not like you're really coming through here completely with 027. Depends on if you're hooking a straight section off here or a larger radius 027 curve off of here. And which helps me quite a bit. I can run some of my my post-war F3 2343s. I can run through here a lot of times without any issue. And but this design's kind of a neat, it's I've seen guys that get these where you can't take this cover off, and see in here internally that these are designed. I don't know if you can see these nubs here. This really kind of ingenious. I mean, this slides really easy, and it goes in there, and it, no matter if it goes this direction or there, it always finds those locks, those notches for the lock. And what it does it's supposed to be locking that in place. You don't want this moving. So these automatic turnouts, you're not really designed to move by hand. If you flip that hard enough, it'll lock it in there. So you can do it, but to me it's just a crazy idea how easy that works, how it locks in there so easy, yet how effective it is. It's just pretty simple. The other thing about this that's kind of ingenious, you can see they got these little nubs here. There's one there, one there. You know, they connect to these two rivets on your frog area here. And what it's designed to do, depending on if it's in this position, that nub is free of that copper tab. And so this is floating free. It's not making contact to anything other than it's touching the outside rail. So right now this is your common and this is your hot. But when the switch turns that direction, that other nub now is connecting, it's connecting this to hot, and it's opening this rail. So that nub is floating free. So they've got these little notches, these little nubs on the contact shoe in here. I don't know if you can, or the contact plate in here. You can see that little nub. It's designed for that, to make contact to that, and that this one would be free. If they both touch at the same time, then these would both be hot. So that can't happen. So it's kind of a neat, ingenious idea what they did here, very simplistically. Kind of makes you wonder how long it took to come up with that idea. You know, they must have had some really good engineers there. You know, that's one thing about it. You know, it seemed like those engineers were good at coming up with solutions that were effective and cheap. So it's a pretty good design. You know, I've never had any issues with that. It's crazy how, with all that in mind, how smooth and easy these work. You'd think they would hang up a lot. Now, it's not something you want to get any of this metal kind of bent out of shape. That'll affect it. So you don't want to be, you know, bending around on this. You want to make sure this is all stays straight, because that has to do with how smooth these run. And there is no lubrication on any of this. In fact, I wouldn't recommend probably doing any, you certainly wouldn't want to do any grease, or I don't even know if you want to do oil. The problem with grease, you know, you could probably maybe get away with some silicone if you really wanted to lubricate. I would lubricate it with silicone before I'd lubricate with anything, just because silicone does not attract dust and contaminants. That's the nice thing about silicone. Oils, petroleum-based stuff, oils and grease, they're going to attract dust and oil, and that's something you don't really want to get in there, because once you do, it starts gumming it up. And so you're better off probably really not putting anything on here. I mean, the way these were designed, even though they're this old, you'd think that they would be kind of froze up, but they're not. It's kind of amazing how smooth these still work. So, you know, I thought that was worth sharing, especially if you guys are a little bit curious and you've never seen the inside of one of these and how they function. And hopefully you enjoy seeing that, and I thought it was worth sharing. Another thing I like about the tubular track is it's easy to custom cut to any length you want. And you know, this redo on my layout is requiring me to refab some new pieces for it. So when I turn this on, it's going to get noisy. Just like that, guys. It's pretty quick to cut. And you know, I could take it over here to the grinder, bench grinder, and kind of true up the edges a little bit, if need be. That just lets me knock off these corners a little bit, and then the rest of this I'm gonna dress up with a file. I made the new piece I just cut. This is just a little better quality section of track than what was in there. That was some wore out, and this, you know, it's pretty easy. Like I say, I do the cardboards in here, and then it's pretty easy. I can just slide this wire. If you can see in there between the cardboard and the rail, it's a small enough wire, it'll fit through there. And I just repurposed the wire off the old one. And I'll either take some sandpaper or Scotch-Brite pad and scuff this area up a little bit. And then you want to use already put some tinning flux on here. This is an old solder spot anyway, so just a matter of resoldering this old wire to this new track section. And this is how I've done all my feeds. I don't use any track lock-ons because all my feeders are soldered to the underside of the track just like this. And there that is. I think I'm going to give that just a little more. Now I already had solder on the wire, and I already had solder on the track section. So, this is going to make this just solder that much quicker. It's kind of hard to get that to stay in place. Maybe I can hold it down with the solder. Yeah, that worked. Okay. Sometimes you need like 3 hands almost. So that's all there is to just, making your outside isolated insulated rail. And so, I'll have a track pin in this end. Don't need it in this end. Simply because, let's see, no, that's not right. I do need a track pin in each end here, I guess. That's right. I do have to completely isolate that out. Yeah. So this needs an insulated track pin in each end. And so that's all there is to just, resoldering this. We're going to be putting sections all back together. I've already made some new sections here. Of course, you got to have your insulated outside rail on both of your roots here. So you can see here where I've got the cardboard in here on each one of these, and I just run my wire in between the cardboard and the rail here, and I just repurpose the old wire off the old sections and solder it. I just solder it directly to the track. So these are ready to go in. So this is, I've kind of pre-assembled this all, makes it a little bit easier for you guys. Just FYI, what I do is I find this metal that Marx used for the rails on their turnouts is a little bit different metal than what they used for their track, and it's a lot softer alloy. So some guys will tell you to just use the 027 track pins on these, and I guess they pinch them down to match the O gauge track. But that I I don't think that's ever going to be a tight connection. So what I do is, it's pretty simple. I'll just take a O-gauge pin and then, you know, drive them here in each one individually, just to gap these so I can make it a little bit easier to plug the track sections in. And you know, you can look pretty close there. I don't know if it shows on the camera. You really can't see any difference in, you know, I don't know if you guys can see that. I can't tell any difference in, you know, that one there may be a little bit, but I can't really tell any difference in, you know, that it made this any wider really, but I'm sure, you know it is. But what I like about this metal, it kind of stretches and it's not really a problem. So I'd rather use, it's just better in my mind to use the O-gauge track pins to do this. And it's nice and tight, it's not going to come apart. So another thing, you know, that I did, I repurposed and took the old 027. I use 027 track pins to fill these gaps in here. You're going to have one here on each root. So you got, you know, you want those in there so it's okay if it touches here, but you don't want it to keep it from locking in, to lock it in place. So it's not going to hurt if it touches. It doesn't have to touch. This is really just to fill in the gap for engines that are equipped with rollers, which is pretty much everything but Marx. So that's important to get those back in. And like I said, I just repurposed the ones I had in the old turnouts I pulled out of here. So another thing you're gonna have to do, obviously there's a difference in height. So I shim these up, and to do that, I found a product here that's what this is. This is just insulated pipe wrap. That's all it is. I get this at Home Depot. I like this product. You know, it's foam, but it's got a backing you just peel off, and there's adhesive on here. That adhesive is, I don't know what it is, but it's crazy strong. I mean, it's one of those things that you better have it where you want it, because you're not going to get it back up. Not without, you know, it isn't going to just peel right back off. If you're going to get it off, it's going to be scraped off or cut off with a putty knife, and it's going to come off in pieces. So it's got some serious sticking power. This can also be used, if you know, in a pinch for road bed. It's, you know, it's almost 2 inches wide. You know, I have used some over here. I'll show you here in a little bit on this spur here, just because I ran out of the road bed, and I didn't want to order more just for that little section. So if you double this up, it'll equal the same thickness as the Woodland Scenics, and I can kind of show you how I applied this here in a little bit. But so for now, I just need to cut me some pieces. You know, this doesn't really have to probably be this long. I just make this kind of match the turnout. Pretty simple to cut with a knife. And then you just peel this backing off. Now, this has been laying around a while, and this stuff was, I think this is a 30-foot roll. It's like $13 or something. 1/8 inch thick, 2 inch wide by 30 feet. So there you go. So I'm assuming the Woodland Sinks must be about 1/4 inch thick road bed. And I'm not really suggesting that you want to use this for road bed throughout, but you know, if you wanted to, I certainly don't see why you couldn't. You know, I don't know what the price of the Woodland Sinks is. When I got it, it was, I think it was about $15 a roll, and I can't really remember right offhand the length it came in. I don't think it was 30. It might have been 30 or 25 foot. You know, I'm sure you guys will know. I can tell you exactly. There's a box laying right here, 24 feet. So it would be cheaper to do the Woodland Scenics in that regards if you had to double this up. So that's something to keep in mind. So I'm going to try first with the first layer to see if that gets me to the proper height. Because I noticed I had a double layer on there on the old ones. And, you know, it's not quite lining up, so maybe it does require a double layer. I just want to make sure I didn't overdo it. Go back here and get the old one just to see. I think this does require a double layer of it on there, and yeah, I don't know that I'm going to get this. Yeah, that's not going to come off of there without. I mean, it looks like it's going to come off, but the backing's going to stay. So I'll just cut me a new piece. I mean, this stuff is handy for other stuff too. You know, it is the foam pipe wrap. So it's, you know, it's up to you if you want to use it for like the printed circuit boards and tenders. You know, if it degrades like the original, it may not be something you want to use, but you know, I may not be around that long. So I'm going to try two pieces here starting out. Looks like, I don't know, I may be needing to go around and get some more of this. Looks like that's all I got left on that roll. Well, I made it back, and just FYI, this stuff's $15.98 roll now, so it went up a little bit, so you can tell it's been a while since I've done this. And I've just got this switch here to gap up, and looks like I'm missing some parts here, or a piece here that came off. Oh, yeah, that was probably attached to the back of the switch. So that happened to just come up. So I'm going to put this actually on the switch itself instead of on the table like that. You can see where I had some of this down to the table. That's how it comes up. So like I said, once it's down, it's not coming back up. It'll just, you know, you can peel it off there, but it's going to leave this backing, and you'd have to find something to get that backing off of there. So it's fairly aggressive adhesive on this. It's amazing how well it sticks. So it's, in that regard, it's a good product as long as you get it where you want it and you're done. I'm just gonna, this just needs a little bit here, space that up so that end of the switch isn't flopping around. Don't need to even bother measuring anything. I think it's gonna take like probably 3 or 4, yeah, probably 2 more of those just to bring it up to the height of the, yeah, see, that's gapped off there pretty far. So it's going to take a couple of more pieces of this. Now, I don't know if you guys can see this here. That's where I've used it for the road bed that I was talking about. So that's how I did it right there. You can see there's a slight depression here in the center, but like I said, it doesn't really matter because your ties are going to rest on where there'll be tape on each side of it. So if you need to do some road bedding in a pinch, you know, that's a way you can do it. Looks like I'm going to need one. I think I'm going to need one more piece of this. And that should do this. Last piece here. Oops. You know what? It's kind of sticky, but it doesn't feel, you know, that sticky to stick down like that. It's pretty sticky, but I'm just surprised how well it adheres to any surface you put it to. Doesn't seem to matter what it is either. So there's that. So this time I'm going to stuff this wire down there first to make that a little easier. I stuffed everything down the same hole to make it a little bit more simple, where I don't have to have so many holes. That came loose there, so this is always kind of a little bit of a challenge. Probably should have put another tie on there, but that's such a small gap of track, I'm not too worried about it right there. Get that started there. Yeah, there we go. Okay, now we can shove all this together, get it to all tight. Then all I gotta do is put this last piece in here. There it is. All back in and done. Kind of surprised that went remarkably well. I mean, normally when you redo stuff, it never seems to go back in the way it did the first time. So, you know, I'm really pleased how this went. Everything just kind of fell into place, and I'm surprised it only took a day to do all this. So got all back in and done. I'm really happy through here. You can see how nice and straight that is through there now. You know, I may have to go back on some of my old videos and see if that shows up how the alignment through this straight part here wasn't between these two radius curves here was a little bit wonky looking. If you looked at it, wasn't that noticeable standing over here, but you can see how much this switch is, the old switch was against here, so that's how much it has shifted over just by shoving this curve down that way and making it spread back this way a little bit more to get the alignment correct on it. You know, this part of the track is kind of a little bit puzzling. This part of the track went this direction, but it also went this direction, yet it went over and I had to cut all these pieces off. So that's telling me, you know, I had these pieces all cut too long. And, you know, just by getting alignment correct on that, it, you know, straightened all that out. So it's just something that, you know, just kind of pay attention. You know, it takes you to kind of pay a little bit more attention. And throwing these turnouts in there, it just makes it just a little more complex to get stuff to line up and fit right. So just keep that in mind if you're going to be doing turnouts and that type of thing. to get that right, because you want that alignment right. Thankfully those Marx turnouts are open frog design on there. It's probably one of the main reasons, even though this wasn't quite right, I could back through those turnouts with ease. So, I mean, it's just like running through any other curve or straight section, because there's no guardrails on any of that. So, and it lets you do some high speed running through there too. So it's just a much smoother, I'm sure some of the newer turnouts are much better than these, but I'm trying to compare this to, say, the the post-war stuff that Lionel put out, like the 022s, like I'm using over here. They have their good and bad points, but those, if you notice, there's a lot going on in there with guardrails and plastic, and those turnouts tend to be really noisy and kind of bumpy. These are just so smooth. I mean, it's night and day difference as far as you're running through these. So I guess the moment of truth is going to be checking these out. I've got everything wired back in. Hopefully I've got everything connected up correctly. And I guess we're going to see here pretty quick. So if you notice how Marx did this, it's another kind of a poor man's way of doing this. These turnouts, you can't really leave them, the lights on, powered all the time, with the way these momentary switches work. So they came up with this design here. Now, this light bulb, as you guys notice, that little copper plate in there, that's kind of a terminal block, is feeding this light off of track power. So these are independent, so I can operate the switch without the light being on. To give you an example here, let's just throw a switch here and see. Yeah, that switch is working good. You can see how that light's just going to only stay on momentary as long as I'm pushing the switch. It's going to go back out. There's no really way for that to stay on. But we'll try this here with some power. And watch this design a little bit. It just slides that back and forth. And your light can stay on that way. So you can always have a lit turnout, provided you have track power. Now, it's going to be variable. So that's the only other issue. So the brightness is going to be dependent on how much voltage you're applying to get the engine to run. This is going to sap some transformer power, but it's not going to be that much to make, that much difference. But there's that switch working. Try this one. That switch is working. We need to check out our auto non-derail feature on this stuff too, to show you how that works if you're not that familiar with it. So here's the car. That's soon as this is my non-auto derail section. Soon as those wheels touch that, it should throw that switch back straight. I've already got it turned to the diverging route. So soon as that switch, or this train car hits that's going to act like the switch. See how that works? So that's why you want a non-derail feature, just so you don't have to be over here tending to the train should the train change direction and you forget about it. It's going to throw the switch automatically. So there's that one, and it seems to be working okay. We'll go on around here, and we could throw this switch here, and I'll throw that switch back to the diverging route. So we'll come back here. That should throw back straight. That should throw back straight. So our auto non-derail feature's working on that. We're going to go in here and it's already thrown. But if this was to the straight and the train was coming, I don't have to sit here and maintain it. It's going to automatically throw that switch for me. I don't have to use a controller. So it's a pretty big advantage to having the auto non-derail feature. You know, I just need to get these wired with capacitors or pay a little more attention when I've got trains running on these. So the thing is to pay a little more attention. You know, so we got this one here. Well, why I don't want to go on the track. So here I don't have track power on. I mean, we can do it right here to. We can get that engine in neutral. So that'll let you see how this one's working. I'm going to throw that to the diverging route. And we're going to come over here with the car, you know, away from the controller. And if this is connected correctly, it should throw, once it hits that section here, that's my auto non-derail track section, it should throw it back. Just like that, your train controls your turnouts for you. You know, and that's to prevent derailing, or that, you know, the fact I don't have to be over here Johnny on the spot real quick if a train's coming and throw that back before it gets there. So we checked that one. I've got one more to check here. You can see this little section here is my auto non-derail right here, with this wire running to this little tiny section of track here. So we're going to throw that back straight. Okay, come over here away from the controller, and as soon as those wires touch, that's how quick this is. A train can come through here pretty quick, actually. And it's amazing how quick it throws that, just that small section. Believe me, I've tried to speed a train up fast enough to go through them to try to derail a train on purpose, but it's impossible to do. I'm not as quick as I think I am, apparently. So that's how effective that is. Just a small section like that's all you need. So there you guys go. Another thing, I guess we can check. I can turn these switches off now. I'm going to run the GG1 because that was another issue. I couldn't run it without hitting this post. Let's just see if it clears. Yes, it's clearing now. And that's running through. It's running real nicely through all the new track sections, so that's a bonus. You know, it'll be interesting to see how they run through the spurs here, the yard. You know, I'll do some heavy running here and try to run my trains and back them through my spurs, through my my turnouts. Had a major earthquake here, shifted the house off, or station off its foundation in the process. So it'll be neat to get all this back. You know, for now, I'm going to run this for a while because you just never know if something is going to malfunction on you, even though everything's working fine now. I just kind of learned my lesson not to get in too big a hurry, especially when wiring electrical items. It's always a good to, you know, run it for a while. All right, well, it's the official now. Everything's back up and running. Long day, but it's 10:20. And I even managed to get a nap in there. Kind of hard to believe I got that all done in a day, but there it is. Make sure everything's going to run. Hey everybody, I got to thinking about a few things, and I thought this would be a great opportunity for me to put my money where my mouth is and showcase how you can run through these Marx turnouts trouble-free. And I can't think of a more fitting engine to use than a post-war era steam engine, because a diesel just wouldn't be a challenge. And so what we have here is a Lionel post-war 2046. Now, disregard that 763 you see on the side of her cab there, and then, you know, that's obviously a boiler front off a 2065, and those white rim drivers were painted on. Now, I'm not going to complain. That's just the way I bought it. I only paid $20, so it's hard to complain about something like that. Now, it's going to be followed up by quite possibly what is the absolute worst design on a tender, an MPC era tender with this roller pickup. Now, I call that a pop-off, because they'll just pop off with even the slightest track deviation. So it's a pop-off pickup because it will pop it off, and then it will pick up the back of the tender and derail it. So, and I just noticed here, I've got my Gorilla mounting putty on there holding that on, so maybe it won't pop off, but I can't be sure it won't derail. Now, you probably heard me talk before about I've got 1,000 uses for Gorilla putty. And that's probably use 898 because it probably took me that long to figure out all I got to do to fix that is put a little bit of Gorilla putty on there. And you know, that might be a good method to use to repair couplers instead of rubber bands. I'll have to try that and see how that works. Now, I'm following up that engine and tender combination with not one, not two, not three, but 4 flat cars, that tank car back there, and then those 2 hoppers. And one of those hoppers is a Menards hopper. And for those of you that have a Menards hopper, you know how light those are. Now, behind that, I have got those box cars, and they are considerably heavy than the other cars. And then that caboose back there, as far as cabooses go, that's a pretty heavy caboose. And then to make it a little bit more challenging, we're not going to be backing through just 1, but 2 turnouts. And then we're going to be going back into not a 90-degree curve, but a 180-degree curve. And in Kansas here, we have a term for that. We call that bassackwards. So I'm going to be running a bassackwards train, bassackwards through turnouts. You know, maybe the title of this should have been bassackwards, because that's what we're going to be doing here. Now, if you Googled how to derail a train, I'm pretty sure this would be the image that would come up. only there wouldn't be any Marx turnouts. So I would suggest you grab a seat, sit back, get comfy, and enjoy the carnage. Please listen to this quick public service announcement. No trains were injured during the making of this film. While we're waiting for old Bessie here to build up a head of steam, I thought it's important to point out that if my calculations are correct, this consist is precisely long enough for the engine to clear that caboose before it gets through the turnout. So the other thing I'd like to ask for is I'd appreciate your patience, because while I'm running the camera and controlling tracks and running the conventional engine, I'm busier than a one-armed paper hanger. So with that being said, I think it's time to pour the coals to Bessie and get her moving out. Well, I don't know what you guys think, but I'm pretty proud of old Bessie there. I think she deserves an atta-girl. You know, I hope you enjoyed this episode.
I certainly did. I really had fun sharing it with you all, and I just want to say thank you for watching. And you're watching another episode of Dale's Rails. I'll see you next time.